Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a mega meta report for the OP07 meta. We did do one a couple weeks ago for like the first week and the first couple of events, but we're at the end of July now, and we've had like dozens of events to kind of go over, so I wanted to make an updated video, especially since we're kind of at like the halfway mark for this meta in general. So if you guys want any of the data that we use today, we can go to my website, Eggman Events. I've put, again, dozens of events on here. I'm pretty sure that between recording this and uploading this, there'll be even more events that I haven't even put into this video yet. So make sure to check it out. I put a lot of work into it, and there's a lot of data and deck lists and everything else for you guys if you want a resource for that. And if you want to make your own videos and your own conclusions based off the meta, you can use that for that as well. But please make sure to check it out if you haven't already. I highly recommend it. But we kind of had two classes of events for this month. It's a very weird month. So Europe had all of these standard large scale events. So these are like 512 to 124 cap players, and they had five big ones: Europe, Latin America, and also Oceania. North America, we kind of just had our store regionals as well, so I do go over that in this video too, but I do want to separate them because I do think they're like separate tiers, and we can kind of draw some separate conclusions between the two of them. But it is really weird that North America as a region hasn't had like a large event. The largest event that I can think of is the 200 plus person webcam event that I held earlier this month, which I didn't put into this video, but if you want to check it out, you can check out the website for those details. But for this kind of large scale regionals, we did have five big ones again, four with a 512 cap and one with a top or with a 1024 cap. I also want to mention that Europe, every region outside of North America typically has 2 days and a top cut. We generally do not have that for North America unless we have like over 1024 players. So that's just like a weird region difference for this. But what I'm just saying is that all the 512 caps had a top 16 unless it was an online event, and then the 1024 also had a top 32 cut where they went to as well. So of that, we did have two winners. We had five winners, two NLs, one OP01 law, one Star Deck 10 law, and one Moria, which, if you look through this, those are very peculiar winners. They were definitely on like the minority of what people were bringing, and they are able to kind of go all the way, which I thought was really, really interesting. So we can go into just the entirety of the leaders as well. So we did have 23 copies of Rob Lucci, 17 NL, 15 Bonnie, 14 Stardeck 10 Law, 14 Stardeck 13 Luffy, 6 Nami, 4 Don Quixote do Flamingos, 2 Morias, and 1 of the green and red Trafalgar Law. So you can already see like that little spec that I have up there has 2 winners inside of it out of this entire topping pie chart, which is really interesting. But I think this just kind of solidifies that the top 5 are pretty understood of Lucci, Enel, Bonnie, Law, and Luffy, and then there are some like fringe from there. But this is what we've been seeing on a really large scale, and we do see that these guys kind of take a lot of it. So I do think this also kind of solidifies that I think Rob Lucci is like the most popular, but not necessarily the strongest. Just a lot of people are on the deck, and then just the other 4, just as they're pretty. It's pretty close for all intents and purposes. But that's kind of what we're looking like at a like regional topping level, and then we do have these store regionals. So we have 9 as of this recording. I'm sure I'll have a 10th one up again before this video goes up, but they're all 64 player cap. They're top 4. These are really the only events, like large scale, medium size events that North American players have right now for this month. We also do have Gen Con at the beginning of August, which has like 5 events for North America, like back to back. So hopefully they're not too terrible for me to input. But of these store regionals, we did have 3 Bonnies, 2 Namis, 2 Luccis, 1 NL, and 1 Star Deck 10 Law. So pretty diverse as well for that. But you'll see that like no red green law, no Moria. We do see some Namis, which is interesting, and like Nami and Bonnie taking a lot of these spots, I think, is really, really peculiar as well. And I do want to mention, like, these are like, I think all of these events, based on they're regional, at like they're large events, but you don't really travel, I think, more than a couple hours if you're not from that area. So it's all very regional. And then again, it's 64. And then also, since it was a lottery based system to get into these events, it was more of a like even playing field, right? So I would say that like if you go to like a regular and like standard regionals with standard sign up processes, the top end is usually like people who are very good at this game are usually very good at signing up for tournaments, right? So because of that, I think that they are more the player pool is at a higher level than just a standard lottery if you just take 64 people randomly kind of thing. So I think that's also something that impacts some of these tournaments as well. But for it, if you look at the topping leaders, we did have 8 Bonnie, 6 Enel, 6 Stardeck, 10 Law, 6 Lucci, 5 Lucci, 6 of the Stardeck, 13 Luffy, 2 Nami, 1 Perona, 1 Moria, and a Katakuri. So again, the same diversity. We're seeing over 75% for the top 5 leaders, at least by popularity, right? And then we do have a couple trickle in, and this is kind of what I was saying too, is that from a point of view where we're looking at like 64 players of just random skill level, right? Instead of generally more high leaning ones, you do have some more decks and varieties, which I think is really interesting. In particular, Nami, I think, especially since it did win 2 of them, and I think it's going to win. I know for sure it won another one. I just don't have all the data for it. I think Nami is definitely like a skill check kind of deck where if you're not used to playing against it, or you're not used to what the value that it gains and how it gains it, you can get a lot of free wins against people who are just really inexperienced against the deck. But I also think the deck is just generally better than average than like it has been for the last year or so. So I think that's also a good thing for Nami in this one. But I think that this is, if we want to look at both of them real quick too, that we do have a good amount of diversity between the both of them, right? We do see but it's almost like exact. It's almost like exact, like an 80% of like these 5 leaders are the leaders that show up, and then we do have a little bit of extra space. Like Nami takes a position there, and then we do have like a tiny little slice there for the rest. But on it, all things considered, right, from where we were in a variety sense, right? Not just a more diverse meta doesn't mean it's a better meta, right? Everyone has their own definitions for it, but it does seem like there are a lot of decks that are viable, and we're definitely in this format where I think one of these, all these 5 decks, it has a really good matchup into one of the other 5, and then like a really stinky matchup into one of the other ones, right? There's a lot of hard counters, I think, in this meta too, and I think that's just why we haven't really seen a like definitive best deck in format, because I think that there's just not enough, there's not a deck that just has like a 50% win rate against everything across the board, right? I think Sakazuki definitely did for OP05, OP06. There were some hard counters for it, but the things that hard countered to it, lost against the majority of the rest of the field kind of thing. Where in this meta, again, I think there's a lot of different matchups, and so because of that, it makes it tricky to be like absolutely the best at one deck, which I know can be frustrating at a high level too. So I do understand that other side of it. But those are kind of like the results I wanted to go over real quick, and let's go to a quick updated tier list. All right, and so here is my tier list from the beginning of the meta, from the first week or so. We did have these 5 already there, so I think that was pretty accurate for that. I did have it ordered inside this tier, where I thought Enel, Law, Lucci, Luffy, and Bonnie in this order, but I think that this is kind of like really nitpicky. I think it's pretty clear that all 5 of these are pretty close to the same power level, and it really kind of depends on what matchups they run into during their Swiss rounds at the end of the day, but I think that's pretty clear. We did have Moria, Dofi, Boa, and Perona as like the next one, and then we had Yamato, Nami, Dragon, Newgate, Katakuri, and Reiju. So after a couple of weeks and a couple of data, this is where I'm at now. It's a little bit more condensed, but I think it kind of gets the point across. I do think that these 5 are still in the top 5, and I do think it's these 5 specifically. This is my current order for it. Again, it's a little bit nitpicky. If you have a different order, it's probably better than mine, but these are what I'm feeling right now. Of Lucci, if it's not the best one, I think it's pretty clearly the most popular one that people are playing, or at least topping with right now. I think Enel is just very strong. I think it's, again, going to be a little bit worse as we go on, because if you do know how to play against it, you do get a better chance of winning against it, but it does just sometimes put enough of their 9 and 10 bodies out, and then they just win from there. Luffy, I think, is just very strong. It's one of my favorite decks in this format to play right now. Law is good, and I do remember people telling me, like, when am I going to complain about Law being banned from this format? But I think Law, honestly, is more RNG dependent in some ways, and it really depends. Like, if Law wants to win, it wins. I will say, like, if you find your top 10 being the cards that win you the game, you win the game. I won't deny that, but you have no way to make sure you see that consistently, and I think it really depends on like their middling hands and some skill level too. So Law is so great, but I think people are pretty surprised based on where they thought it would be, if it would be like super winning every event to now it's just kind of topping, but it's having some consistency issues. And then Bonnie, and this one's just personal. I have a hard time with the deck personally. I think it's very tricky to play this perfectly, and even if you do, you don't have all the pieces sometimes, and you have to run a lot of cards without any counter, and so it's harder for the deck to work. But Bonnie can still win. Don't think that. Just personally think when I think Bonnie's the worst of the 5 doesn't mean that you can't get it done. So, and then we're going into this, I'm going to say underused kind of tier underneath it. So this is for Nami and for Moria. And honestly, these decks are really good. They're really, really good right now. And I think people just aren't playing them at the same capacity as these other 5 on top of it. And because of that, they're just not topping as much because not as many people are playing it, if that makes sense. So I already kind of talked about Nami, but I think it's really good in this format. And again, I think it's a lot of skill check where there aren't a lot of, there are still players who don't know how to play against it correctly, and they just give you so much free value. And then Moria, I think a lot of people switch to Lucci because it's the new black deck, but I think Moria has been popping up a little bit in the last couple of weeks, at least the last week of this format in July. We have more of it, but I think more people will be going back to Moria and testing out more with more capacity. It was just kind of like this weird spot where we went into OP07, Sakazuki was banned, and we had a new black leader, so I think a lot of, again, people went into Rob Lucci because Rob Lucci is kind of like a mono black version of Sakazuki in a lot of ways, since you put cards into your trash for free, and you also do have like some good cipher pull engine stuff. But I think Moria is still really consistent in some ways. So I think we're going to see maybe a little bit more of it. We'll see. But I think both these, like if I was to go 2 more, I think Nami and Moria could be there. And Moria honestly could just be more consistently stronger than one of these 5 for sure. It just doesn't see as much play in my experience. So we have that. And then we have Viable. These are decks that I think will top occasionally, but they just they have like some issues. And again, not a lot of people I think are playing them consistently. Most of these are ones that just kind of topped already, but they just didn't do it consistently. But it's really weird because like Law, like I think Dofi won one of the store regionals. I think that like Law won like a whole regionals, right? So it's really peculiar to see them down in Viable, but I'm going to put them there for right now. So we have Dofi, we have Perona, we have Law, and then we have Katakuri and Linlin. I put Linlin there just because it did top one as well, but I think Katakuri it's still just generally better. Even though I like Linlin, I like being able to do the life manipulation stuff, and I think it's cool, but I don't think it's quite there quite yet. So but yeah, this is what we're looking like, and everything else is below this. If you have any question of any other leader, it's just not as good as these 12 in my mind. If there's anything I missed, let me know. But again, it's pretty simplified for it, but I think this pretty much wraps up my opinions on the meta right now, based on my own experience, based off the data, and what we're going to see in the next couple weeks too. So anyways, that's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you made it this far and you haven't hit that like and subscribe, make sure to do so. It helps the channel a lot. And make sure to check out my website, Eggman Events, for not only events and looking up data, but you can also do some deck building there. And we've spent a lot of time making that look good too. So that's going to be it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.